you've already watched the other video on the Enlightenment rather than watching my lecture, it's pretty much the same exact thing. I just want to go over basically what's going to be on your test. So you absolutely need to know John Locke, Baron de Montesquieu, Thomas Hobbes, and Voltaire. Those are the four main guys that you absolutely need to know about really in the transition from 7th grade to 8th grade, because you're going to start 8th grade with kind of reviewing this. And so I want to start with John Locke. John Locke was an English philosopher. He was incredibly important in regards to the ideas of human nature and natural rights. And so one of the big things he talked about was the blank slate. And so his idea was something called tabula rasa, the fact that people are born with a mind like a tabula rasa, which basically means a blank slate or page. And so essentially, his opinion was that people are not born good or evil. We are born completely neutral and blank. And throughout our life, we essentially make decisions or go through experiences that cause us to go into, the good sense or the bad sense. And so it's just simply the idea that we are born with choices because our environment and our decisions will shape us into who we are. This led him to kind of talk about natural rights. And so basically, even though we are born as tabula rasa, a blank slate, we are born with a set of natural rights that we as humans are automatically given. We are given the right to life, where we get to live, and we have the right to fight for our life. And then we get the right to liberty, meaning that we have the freedom to make our own decisions. Lastly, he felt that we get the right to property. Now, you might recognize the idea of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's because that's in our Declaration of Independence. Thomas Jefferson later on down the line is going to change property because he didn't feel that we could promise everyone property. But according to John Locke, people are born with the right to actually own things that help us survive. So the idea is, if I have the right to live and I have the right to be free in my choices, I also have the right to own whatever it is that will allow me to live and be free. And so land, food, tools, I'm born with the right to all these things. And so according to John Locke, because of just being a human, I have these three natural rights. The last thing he talked about that I need you to understand is the idea of a social contract. And so John Locke basically said, okay, we are born as tabula rasa. We are born with the ability to make decisions and undergo experiences that shape who we are. We are born with these natural rights. We are born to the right of life, liberty, and property. And with that means that we really should be able to function pretty well. However, we need a government. Locke really talked about the idea of, if we have no government, people will basically not function well. And so he believed that the purpose of the government was to prevent people from losing their natural rights. Then the government is created to protect our right to life, liberty, and property. The government protects our right to undergo these monumental decisions that will affect us. And so basically, in order to have a government that actually is a legitimate one or a valid one, we need to have a social contract. The social contract basically is an agreement between a people and its government to protect our rights. So we give up some freedom in order to have the government protect us in regards to life, liberty, and property. And so the idea is that if we, the people, agree that we will not murder, the government will protect us from those who want to hurt us, right? So they protect our life. And so essentially, if the government always protects us and serves in our best interests, we're good. But the minute the government fails to deliver that, we, the people, have the right to revolt. And so that's where you get the American Revolution. Thomas Hobbes had an entirely different philosophy. Now, he was older than John Locke, and he lived during the English Civil War. So essentially, he had a more negative view of bad government. He had a negative view of people in general because he saw humans as entirely different. He saw humans as naturally selfish and quick to fight. And so we often use the quote, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. And so he basically was like, people are awful. Everyone is born completely evil. And essentially, our state of nature or our natural being is that people will always do what's best for them selfishly, and we will always be at war with somebody else. And so essentially what he thought was that we needed a very strong and strict government to prevent us from actually destroying ourselves. And so he basically was like, look, you have to have a government. You cannot have a life without one. So his version of the social contract was, again, that agreement between people and their government. But in Hobbes's view, people have to give up a lot of rights and a lot of power in order for protection. And so basically, Locke says, okay, we give up rights, the government protects our rights, but if the government does not hold up their end of the bargain, we have the right to rebel. Well, according to Thomas Hobbes, the social contract was not a two-way street. He honestly argued that once we agree to give up our power, we agree to give up our freedoms, to have that government protect us, we do not have the right to overthrow, replace, or even question the government, and instead the government has complete and total power. So that's a pretty significant difference. He honestly felt that monarchy was the best idea. He liked the idea of having a king or queen where all the power was protected under one ruler, instead of having a democracy where we all vote.